Okay, I guess we'll get started. So we're doing today Reish Mem Daled Sif, which is one of the most often quoted sifim in Amirah L'Akum because it has so many ramifications, so many nafkaminas of halacha. We'll talk about a couple at the end where it comes in. But this special heter over here, we see a special heter. Beis Yosef brings down B'Shem the Mordechai, B'Shem Rabbeinu Meir, the Rama Rittenberg, by the Jews that purchased the meches. They purchased the right to collect the taxes from the authorities, and then they have to hire out goyim to continue collecting the taxes for Shabbos. So the chiddush of the Rabbeinu Meir is that since it's considered a kibolis, it's considered you're doing it as a kablan. So, excuse me. And how do we set up a contractor for this kind of work to make it not be considered just shliach? So it's over here in Beis Yosef that you set it up in a way that you're not working by the hour or by the day, but you're working by the job, which the job would be if let's say you raise, for every $1,000 of taxes you raise, you get $100. So he's interested in raising it to get that percentile that he's making. So that's considered a kablan. So we see over here that despite the fact that he's being asked to work, there are a number of kashas over here why it should be okay, but we're being matir a kablan over here as opposed to being his shliach. It's not considered a shlichus, it's considered a kablan. Like we always say that every kablan is considered a daited nafshei, and working for himself and not for the sake of the Jew. It's not considered the shliach of the Jew. Now we have over here a couple exceptions to the usual rule, which number one, the ikar exception is that we're working just on Shabbos. He's being specified to work on Shabbos. Generally, all the heterim we've had for a kabbalah until now have been where you don't specify Shabbos. If you bring your suit to the cleaners, so they're paying you for the job, even if they might work on Shabbos, it's not a problem because there's a kabbalah for the suit, and you're not specifying Shabbos. If you would specify Shabbos, you would say, you bring it to him right before Shabbos, and say, I'm coming, they're open till 8 o'clock on Saturday night, and you're going to come in at 6:30 months of Shabbos. You say, I need it for a Saturday night for a wedding, so I need this done right away today. Then that would be also, even though he's a kabbalah, still it's also. You cannot specify the Shabbos for him to work. And over here, you are specifying Shabbos. That's the whole problem over here, is you can't collect the taxes on Shabbos. Even so, we're being matir over here because of the Hesed Gadol. Now, the Hesed Gadol that we're talking about over here is not, as we'll see as we go along, is not just you're going to lose out the revach, but you are actually putting money out. Either it's by the week or but it seems to be calculated by the day. You only have a certain amount of time to be able to collect these taxes. It has to be tax season, and the taxes that are collected, you're putting money out every single day, virtually, whether it's calculated every day or works out every day. You're putting out money every day for these taxes to be able to collect the taxes. So if you don't collect today, you're going to lose that day. There's no way to make up today. Whatever can be done today can only be done today. And so this Hefsid Gadol is the heter for the Mordechai over here, to the Rabbeinu Meir to matir. And we have also another nakuda, another very important prat, is not just the Hefsid itself that's been matir. It's based on the Gemara in Mishnah Hichshek and Kuftin Gimel Amud Aleph in Shabbos, which is matir over there. If you're walking along, you didn't realize it's coming Shabbos, it turns into Shabbos, you're carrying your wallet in a Shus Rabin. So then if you don't, you have a goy with you, you can hand it to the goy to carry your wallet for you. Because you say that Adam Bohol Mamono, a person gets overwhelmed by their money, by loss of money, and if you don't allow him to give it to a goy, which is a lesser avera, the Amirah L'Akum, then he's going to be over a much more chamer avera of carrying Da'at Amos for Shus Rabin. So see from that Gemara over there, a Yisod, that we're matir at times, we're matir a lesser avera for the person not to be over a bigger avera, which in this case would be Da'at Amos, their case would be Da'at Amos, and over here, So the hanacha is that the bigger Avera you'll be over, which we'll see a discussion in the shot and the Taz and Rum, but it seems to be that the consensus generally is that the Avera will be over here if you are not allowed to do it. You'll come to yourself collect the taxes. Once you collect the taxes, you're going to end up writing because you always want to record the taxes that you collected. That's part of the process, generally, at least in the big cities, the folks would say. So the heter is not really just because of the hefsed itself. The very essence of the hefsed, that itself, we don't find a heter from Lakum. And haraya that we saw already previously in the Gemara in Kuchaf Aleph, a while ago we saw that you cannot ask a goy, even if Chas v'Shalom someone's house catches on fire, lo aleinu, you can't ask a goy to put out the fire, even though you're going to lose your whole house, all your nechasim, everything. We see that we're not matir Amira Lakum for that. You could say kol ha macha be'en amafsid. You can make a declaration. Anyone who puts this fire out is not going to lose out. So Rashi said over there, and we saw Rashi in Yevamos and Kufi Dalad at the time. It said that when you say en amafsid, it means that the goy realizes that he's going to make money on this. So when he comes to put out the fire, he's really doing it for himself to make that money. But straight up, regular Amir La'akum for putting out the fire in the house, that we don't find a heter for. So we see that the hefsed itself is not a reason to, again, we're talking over there in a case where the person himself is not going to be over for what he's not going to be mechaber himself. Maybe he doesn't have the ability to. That's a discussion there. But we're not allowing it over there. That's actually part of the discussion over here that poskim ask. So why should it be different over here? Why is the Chora over there to steer it to this din? Over there we say that for hefsed gadol we're not allowing it. Over here we are. So the one of the answers which is given, this the sefer called Kamras on Shabbos, very cautious sefer on these inyanim, to the first simon in his chedushim in the back. So he says that he wants to say that the elemental difference between a Amir La'akum, a regular Amir La'akum, to a kablanus. The kablanus, he says, a chiddush is considered as if the goy is doing it adaited in nafshay, and as if it's in his own rishus. Because I'll always looked at it as if it's his own rishus that he's doing it in. So Be'etzim nothing wrong is really being done when he's doing a kablanus, because he's doing it for himself. He's not your shliach, and he's doing it in his own rishus. So right now it's like the case over here, that answers one of the questions over here, which is raised by the poskim and the Beis Yosef, is over here. It's also, not only is it on Shabbos, it's also farhesia. There's also a malacha farhesia going on over here, that everybody knows that there's a Jewish tax collector and he has his tax office, and now on Shabbos he has the goy sitting in his tax office collecting his taxes. So not only does it look like he's your shliach, it's also it's a davar shel farhesia, which we'll say, why is that different than avodas karka? So we see from the Beis Yosef, the answer to that is that not only are they matzir over here, the avodah on Shabbos, being kovea avodah on Shabbos, they even be matzir the fact that it's farhesia because of the great loss, and that's going to cause the Jew to, because of the loss, come to Mechal Shabbos on his own. If we're not going to be matzir this. So it's almost like I don't know, in a way, just the Sabras Ozen, it's almost like a Ifas Toar over here, that we're being matzir this because otherwise you're going to be nichshal worse. So this halacha over here comes out to be, it's a tremendous chiddush which bypasses many different isurim that we generally are very concerned about. Right? We have kaveya malachta b'Shabbos. We have the fact that it's farhesia and it's nikra al shem Yisrael, and it becomes davar shel farhesia. All these things, Rabbeinu Meir is being matir, very wide shoulders, was being matir in order to circumvent this loss, which might cause the Jew to be Mechal Shabbos. Okay, so now the Beis Yosef has a shaila when he brings this down, he has a kasha on the Reina Meir. That why does he have to base himself on this Gemara in Shabbos Mishyichshik by the Arnak, by the wallet? Because he starts off asking, over there it's the Shalat of Deraisa, and over here it's the Shalat of Derabanan. That was his kasha. He says, Lama Ran Lahaduri, a Perak Mishyichshik, near the end of the Beis Yosef from this sif. The Mifrak behind the kasha, the Behanach Ein Yisrael Kaveh Malachto B'Shabbos, and Didon Zeh Kaveh Lo Litzel Meches B'Shabbos. Maybe over here it's different because there's no Isser Deraisa in the Kabbalah's Meches. Maybe that's why he's matir. Why it should be mutter over here is because there's no Isser Deraisa. Yes, and Mashenkin over there by the Arnak, you're asking the guy to do it in Isser Deraisa to carry down Amos Rishus Rabin. So why do you have to come on? Why do you have to come onto that Gemara? That Gemara is a bigger chiddush. You could say even without that Gemara. So the answer is that Yeshlomer the Stam Mekabel Mechas Tzrichim Dichtov. But Ikam Malacha Deraisa. So here also you're going to be asking him to ask him to collect the taxes. You also are asking him to do a Malacha Deraisa. So that's the Shakutari of the Beis Yosef. Now the kasha on this. The Mishnah Melech and the Rambam in Perek Vav of Hilchos Shabbos Halacha Tes. He has an arichos on these halachos, and he asks, "What's the Havamim of the Beis Yosef?" The Beis Yosef's kasha was, "Why do you need to come onto this Gemara to find a heter? It's only an Isser D'Rabbanan over here, so why shouldn't it be mater Emir La'akum for an Isser D'Rabbanan?" So that's the whole of the Beis Yosef's kasha. So on that, the Mishnah Melech asks that he's going on the Rambam that was matir when it's b'makom choli or b'makom mitzvah at times to ask a goy to do an Isser D'Rabbanan. In other words, shvus to shvus is only mutar b'makom mitzvah or b'makom choli. We don't find that it's mutar b'makom hefsed. So why would what's the Beis Yosef's kasha? What do you have to come onto that Gemara for to tell you a heter if it's only an Isser D'Rabbanan? Isser D'Rabbanan also we have an Isser of Emir La'akum for an Isser D'Rabbanan. That's that very sugya. We learned that. We spoke about it a couple weeks ago from the Gemara in Eruvin that when it's Machamim Chamimi for the baby that was spilled out, the water was spilled. The Gemara in Laman Ches and Eruvin that. I believe it was Laman Ches, that you can't. We had to come on to Makam Mitzvah Mila in order to matir for the goy to carry water without an eruv to bring it to the Mila, even though it was only an Isser D'Rabbanan over there. We're talking about a Rishus Rabban Shalanu, and still we see you had to come on to Tzarach Mitzvah Mila or to matir to ask a goy to carry the water, the warm water for the baby. So we see that Amir La'akum by Isser D'Rabbanan is also usher when it's not Mokum Mitzvah Gdola or not Mokum Choli. We set off. We have another raya for Mokum Choli as well. So what is the Beis Yosef kasha? Not only that, we already learned the halacha that it's usher Lomar La'akum Liskor Lo Poelin B'Shabbos. You can't tell ask a goy on Friday or Thursday, any day, to go and hire you a worker for Shabbos, even though that worker is not going to be working on Shabbos, it's going to be working on Sunday. But you say Timothy tells you he's going to a certain place. He'll be on Saturday where he's going to see a lot of workers. You say, "Oh, Timothy, you go there. Could you hire this worker for me? Come the following week." That's also, even though hiring a worker is only an Isser D'Rabbanan. So even so, there's an Isser of being Mavakesh from a goy. He becomes your shliach, like your shliach to do the Isser D'Rabbanan on Shabbos. That's Asr. And we see from that halacha, that it's even Asr to do it on Erev Shabbos. Not only on Shabbos can you not ask a goy to do an Isser D'Rabbanan, even on Erev Shabbos, over there I can't ask him to be socher poelim on Shabbos for me. So the Isser Mir L'Akum is even kodem Shabbos for an Isser D'Rabbanan. So what's the Beis Yosef's kasha over here? That what do you need that Gemara of the Arnak for? It's only an Isser D'Rabbanan. So the Mishnah Melech says that they asered before Shabbos to tell a goy to do melacha, even to Rabbanan on Shabbos, that's when he's doing a daita to Yisrael. Like if I ask Timothy to go and hire me a goy on Shabbos to work for me, he's doing it for me. He's doing that for me. He's my shliach. It's a daita to Yisrael. But here we're talking about kabbalanus. Kabbalanus in general is a daita to nafshei. So shlichas of Yisrael there's not. So by that, there was a having maybe to say that maybe by only b'chiyah gavna is going to be usher if he's kovea malachta b'Shabbos to do a malacha deraisa. But if he's kovea, the problem is I'm asking him to do this on Shabbos. I'm asking the guy to collect taxes on Shabbos. So one of the problems over here is kovea malachta b'Shabbos. Maybe I would think that kovea malachta b'Shabbos, when he's doing a kabbalanus, which is best him doing it for himself, I would have a havamina that the problem of kaveh malachta b'Shabbos would only be by a melacha deraisa. I would only be machmir to say I can't be kaveh malachta b'Shabbos, even though he's doing a daita to nafshei for himself, if it's an issur deraisa. But if it be an issur derabanan, that he's not doing it for me, he's doing it for himself, maybe it would be mutter even be kaveh malachta b'Shabbos. So that's actually the Chiddush Gadol of the Beis Yosef, the other way around, that despite all the reasons of it to be matir, despite the fact that he's doing it for himself, there's a Hefsed Gadol, and he's a Kablan. He's really a daita nafshei, and it's before Shabbos. Kamash on the Beis Yosef, even that would be usher, if not for the fact that we would have that Gemara in Shabbos. So it comes out that really the Chiddush is the other way around, that the Chiddush is that we're machmer by Drabanan, even despite all these heterim. That's the shot in the Beis Yosef, it says the Mishnah Melech. Okay. Now the Taz asks further on the Beis Yosef. He asks on him that the Beis Yosef says in his final teretz that the reason that over here we're being matir again like we said before, that the heter of the Rabbeinu Meir is not just because of the hefsed, it's that through the hefsed the Jew will come to do an issur d'oraisa, do Machal Shabbos d'oraisa. And that Isser you might be over, that's what's matter us to allow Mir L'Akum. So now on that, the Taz asks that if so, that will only be in a case where there's a Chashash D'Oraisa. He says, like in the big cities where they collect the taxes, and there they only collect it, they only will give the taxes, or they need to collect it with writing it. They have to keep a record. They have to write it down. In the small towns, he says, in the Shtetlach and everything, when they collect the taxes, they don't write anything. They don't need to write. They remember whatever. There's no need to write. So he says, according to the Beis Yosef, it should come out that this whole Isser, this whole Heter will not apply to a place like that, to all the Shtetlach and everything where they don't write. Where the only Isser happening is an Isser D'Rabbanan. The only possible Isser would be an Isser D'Rabbanan, not an Isser of collecting the taxes. The Jew would do it himself. He would just be collecting, just over an Isser D'Rabbanan, not an Isser D'Oraisa. He wouldn't write anyway. So it should follow from the Beis Yosef that there's no heter in all these small places.
Rebbe.
Yes.
I just want to clarify something. The Beis Yosef, he'll agree with he'll agree with the Mordechai that it's going to be okay, or did you say, was it Rebbe said the Mordechai and the base mayor? Was it both?
Mordechai's quoting the Rabbeinu Meir.
The Rabbeinu Meir.
Yeah.
So the Beis Yosef will end up agreeing with him because of the Gemara and Shabbos.
No, the Rabbeinu Meir brings that raya from the Gemara and Shabbos. The Rabbeinu Meir brings that raya. The kasha of the Beis Yosef was, what does he have to come onto that raya? What does he need that Gemara for? Here, the worst you're asking him to do is an Isser D'Rabbanan. So over there, you need that Gemara, the Chiddush of that Gemara, that you're allowed to ask him to carry the Arnaki. He's carrying it Dalet Amos, which is Rabbin D'Oraisa. So I understand why you need that special heter of that Gemara there. But what has to come onto that Gemara, in our case, where you're only talking about an Isser D'Rabbanan of collecting taxes. it should be more pashut because of Hefsed, you're allowed to ask him to do that. And on that was the kasha. On that was the kasha of the Mishnah Malach, that Isser Derbanan also is usher by Mir La'akum. So you need that Gemara for Isser Derbanan as well.
Can I ask another question? Doesn't this seem like a little absurd that we're allowing a derabanan to protect? Like usually we go the other way around, that we establish gzeros to protect the deraisa, and like that we're allowing a derabanan dafka to protect just because of money. Do we see that anywhere else in Shas, like with any other cases, like kashrus, anything like that?
Yeah, we do. Very often we have throughout all of your idea, throughout all of Isser V'Heter, you constantly find that even though we pass in a certain way, Malcolm Hefsed Meruba, we were somach on the Mekilim, or we have Akula. So
right, we're not even saying that we're somach on Akula. I'm saying like we're saying you're allowed to do an Isser D'Rabbanan. That's like that's what seems.
Well, that's exactly the kasha of the Mishnah Melech, is that we don't find a heter even for Hefsed. We don't find a heter of just plain straight up Hefsed Mammon. We don't find a heter of Amir La'akum, and
right.
Haraya. What about even putting out your house? The Lo Leinu is on fire.
Right.
So we don't find that. So it's only because to matel the Jew from doing it that's more chomer. That's the heter that we're finding over here. Is that otherwise the heter of the Gemara in Shabbos by the Arnik was only to matzel the Jew himself, because it's based on the heter of Adam Bahul al Mamona. A person gets overwhelmed by the loss of his money, so he'll come up to he'll sort of forget himself and be over in Isser D'Oraisa of Chil Shabbos. So that the heter is coming from that, not just the Hefsed Mammon. And it's a sort of Chazal or allowing or sort of giving a klal that better to have it be over an Isser Kal than Isser Chamer. You find the similar, let's say an example, sort of a similar type of example to that in the Gemara beginning of Shabbos and Naftalid, that there were if a person accidentally, or purpose, whatever, he didn't realize the Shabbos and he was madbik, or even if he did it on purpose, he was madbik an isa, a dough onto the wall of the tanur. So if it stays there, it's going to be baked, and he's going to be Chal Shabbos for baking. So, but then over there, the way the tanur were made then, so you have an Isser D'Rabbanan they have a certain kind of a like a spatula that would scrape off the challah from the wall. That's an Isser D'Rabbanan. To do that mice is Isser D'Rabbanan. Over there they said that you could be over, if you're the one who put it on there, then you could be over that Isser D'Rabbanan to stop yourself from to prevent yourself from being over the Isser D'Oraisa. They allow that Isser D'Rabbanan to prevent the more Chomer Isser. And it's interesting that we're not allowing for somebody else to do it over there, because we say that you don't say Chatei Kadesh Yizka Chavercha. You shouldn't be Chotei to save someone else, but if it's you don't have to do an Avera to save him.
Right, and that's also an interesting case because it's already in the oven, so probably even a bigger chiddush, right? Like once it's in the oven, you just it's passive. The fire's cooking. You're not even doing any mice anymore. So that's.
No, but you did.
You did the mice already.
You did the mice already, right?
You did the misa, which retroactively only becomes a misa if it bakes, which is
right. So you can stop that retroactive.
Right, which you can stop. So that's the chiddush. It's interesting. Okay.
That's the Gemara. Yeah. So in a way, not exactly similar, but similar to that. Over here, it's like it's a step removed. Over here, it's the fact that you're going to lose your money. Then you're going to come to be a more common Isser, and therefore they allowed you to give it to the goy to be over Amir La'akum. And so that's the discussion over here in the Beis Yosef, is that over that come over there is a chash deraisa, and what you're asking the goy to do is the same deraisa. Over here, collecting taxes on the Isser D'Rabbanan, but you have to come under that Gemara.
Right.
And on that, the Mishnah Melech's kasha was, what do you mean? The Isser D'Rabbanan is also to ask a goy to do on Shabbos.
Rabbi, sorry to disrupt. Somebody said they're in the waiting room.
Oh, I don't see anybody there, but
somebody just put it on the chat. So
I don't. Let's see.
Maybe he clicked on the wrong link.
Yeah, there's nobody else in the waiting room here. I don't have anybody. Maybe,
I'll write in it.
maybe tell them to come back in, maybe. Okay, getting back to the Taz's kasha on the Beis Yosef. The Taz asks on the Beis Yosef who says that you can only be matter this when there's a chashash isha deraisa, and because of ksiva, because you're not coming to write on that, the Taz asked that it comes out according to that in small places like small towns where they don't write, then there will be no heter because there's no chashash deraisa. Even if you do it yourself, you're only going to be over Nishad Rabbanan. But the Taz brings a raya from Gemara, from that Gemara over there, that we see that not only in the Rosh Hashanah, but even in a Chatzer, they're matter to give it to a goy, even though for you to carry it in the Chatzer would only be an Nishad Rabbanan. It's still it's less of an Nishad Rabbanan to give it to a goy. Amir La'akum is less of an Nishad Rabbanan than when the person himself is over Nishad Rabbanan. Because it's just the Amira of a Rabbanan is more kal than the Rabbanan itself to do it begufo, to do it himself. So the Taz actually is cholik on this Beis Yosef because of this Gemara, and says that the real heter over here is mutter, even if you would be over only Nisr Rabbanan, because it's still more kal to do with your Amir La'akum. So even even in a city, in a small town that they're not going to write, still this heter will apply. Because if you're not allowed to ask a way to do it, you do it yourself, and for you to self-collect the taxes is much more chamor than Amir La'akum of collecting the taxes. That's the chiddush of the Taz. The Magen Avram also is more the same shaila on the Beis Yosef, and in small places there's no writing. It should be also. So he answers that. Nevertheless, because of this Seder, because it's a Hesed Gadol, it's still mutter. Now the Sha'ar Tzion in Lamed Beis summarizes the Machlokas, the Taz and the Magen Avram. He says, what is the reasoning of the Taz? What's the reasoning of this heter? So the Taz says, Sha'ar Tzion Lamed Beis, that even by the Rabbanim or Mekel, through a goy because of Seder, that you shouldn't come to be a more chomer isser of even the Rabbanan through yourself. The Magen Avram says, here it's mutter, even according to one who holds in Shin Zion that shvus to shvus is mutter b'makam Seder. I'm sorry, we're not matter shvus to shvus for Makom Seder in Shin Zion. Nevertheless, here it's mutter because it's considered matzil miyado. That your money shouldn't remain with the goyim. Here it's a bigger type of a hefsed than usual. Shlosh taka mamono. Now, Ramosha and the Tshuva wants to say an afkamina between these two timing. Because he says the fact that the Sha'ar Tzion brings it the Magen Avram at the end is mashma that the Iker Tam is really the Tam of the Magen Avram, not the Taz. And Ramosha and Chelik Beis Simon Salak Daled, his question over there, he's raising the question that you have a owner of a restaurant who has Shabbos meals in the restaurant. So people have to pay before Shabbos to have their meals. But once the restaurant's already open for the Jews that pay before Shabbos, for the From Yidden that come, so once it's already open, then Goyim could walk in, or Machal Shabbos Yidden could walk in also on Shabbos, and you can't really kick them out because the restaurant's already open. And Ramosha wonders why you can't put up signs and say that today you can only eat if you already paid before. But he says, you, the Rav, who are asking me this, must understand for some reason you can't do that. For some reason you're not going to be able to turn away people that want to come in once it's already open. And it's allowed to be open in the way that it is because it's all done with open shel heter. So he wants to say that try to say sort of a summary of what he says a little bit, So he says, Bishleb, according to the Taz, there might be a certain amount of, you could claim that once it's open, if he can't do it, he might lose out or lose his license, and therefore he might be over an issue d'Rabbanan of collecting the money from the people. But according to Taz, that would be okay if that would be enough of a reason to matter it, just to not be over that issue d'Rabbanan, to do it through a goy rather than through himself. However, he says it's mashma from the Sharat Tzion that the Magen Avraham tam is the Iker tam. And that time is that you shouldn't have a big loss, so the loss that we're talking about, which he says that would not apply to the restaurant. And he says that according to this, by a restaurant that stays open, he says, so you don't have the time of matzah miyado, and therefore there's no eitzah of in other words, let's take a step back. According to the Taz, it's a simple eitzah. In order that the person shouldn't be over an isser chamer minei, more chamer isser than doing himself, it's better he should hire a goy to receive the money and to take care of the serving when anybody else walks in, or another goy, or even a Mechalel Shabbos Jew. But since we can't really just rely on this Taz, therefore he says the only eitzah would be to hire a goy who you are machna to him. The goy has to acquire all of the food, all those portions that might be served to people that did not order ahead of time. So I guess they cook a certain percentage above the usual those that order before in order to have enough to feed those who the walk-ins. So you have to be a makne, a kinyan gomor, to the goy, all of those extra meals that might be served on Shabbos that weren't paid for before. And he goes on to say you have to do it through kinyan kesef, and ideally also through kinyan mashicha. And even though kinyan kesef doesn't necessarily work, it's a machlokes whether it works by goy, but here the gabi chashada, you could rely on that if you need to. And he says, but you have to have at least kinyan kesef, and if the goy doesn't have money, he's only going to make the money from what he sells on Shabbos. He doesn't have any money now, then the Jew should lend him the money in order to buy the portions back from him, and then he'll pay the Jew back for the lending, for the loan after Shabbos, after the sales are finished. And furthermore, he has another stipulation that you should set aside a special place in the restaurant that's only for those walk-ins, in order that it's clear that they're the ones that are being served by this goy, and they don't belong to the owner of the restaurant who's a Shomer Shabbos Jew, and people shouldn't be choshed that has a regular restaurant open on Shabbos. And you should also do a piercing, put up signs in the store that on Shabbos it doesn't belong to him. You have to also add a piercing to this. It shouldn't be a Chil Hashem, or it shouldn't be Maris Ayin, that the Jew's restaurant is functioning regular. Now, Moshe says all this out of a lot of pain. He writes very clearly he's not happy about this. He's not happy with it, and he'd much rather put up signs. People should know that if you didn't buy before, everybody should know that there are no walk-ins on Shabbos, because he says that especially in America, that's very powerful, and if people find this type of a terim, then people could make up a terim to leave all the businesses open on Shabbos. For that reason, Moshe, another tshuva in Chelik Dal and Simon Nun Hey, it's kind just to see his words inside. It's not a long tshuva, but he's speaking there about creating shtari mechira to a goy to keep certain businesses open. And he writes at length how much he's very unhappy about these things, because it's a way that if it could catch on potentially the way things were, especially in his days in America, people wasn't nearly as stark as it is today. The Shomer Shabbos were barely holding on by a thread, and back when he wrote it, it was back in the days where people were still working on the Lower East Side and getting fired and having to, you had a lot of Jews that wanted to be Shomer Shabbos but couldn't because they wouldn't have what to eat, so they would go daven early and hashkamim in Shabbos morning, make kiddush, and then go to work. And so it was a very different world in those days. But still, I don't know if it's necessarily that much better from this perspective that if people will come up with a heterim with shtaros, then it's very easy for others to latch onto that and find heterim as well. So we don't just blanket, give out heterim to make shtaros and sell to a goy the business and keep it open on Shabbos, unless you have a special reason to do so, like a Baal Tshuva. Often we do that. It's kanas hashavim. He's coming from, and you can't tell him to drop his business. So we find we send him to set up a shtar and a special mechira to a goy, etc. But so Moshe never didn't come on. Asra is just not happy with it because what it might lead to in certain situations. So in this case, this restaurant as well, that was heter. But it's very interesting that Moshe is dealing there with this with our Magen Avraham and Taz, and the nachmina between the Magen Avraham and the Taz, and this nakuda of Shem Yishtaka. Now going on here. So the Taz asks another kasha, a very important kasha here, that if we find over here this heter of hefsed, so why are we not matir also in Reish Mem Gimel the tanur of a merchatz, that over there we didn't find any heter to leave them on Shabbos? So he answers that it's only because of the hefsed gadol of their choshesh that you might come to do it yourself. If it's not such a great hefsed, like he considers a merchatz, not to be such a great a big loss, and it's sort of a difference beside here it's a great loss because you already put the money out to acquire the taxes. That money is going to be lost completely if you don't give him the heter to do it through a goy, or he'll come to do it himself, and you have this for a bahol amamono. So the Taz is chilik betzim is between a hefsed gadol and hefsed katan. He's not being machalik and essentially between the two. He doesn't speak out an essential difference between the merchatz and the tax collecting. It's just really the darga of the hefsed, which very much makes it very nesata derech the shiur. It's interesting. It's very hard then to start calculating what's considered gadol or katan. Magen Avraham, however, it says a chiluk differently. The way it's explained by Levushe Srad, he wants to say that by meches, there's a hefsed every single day that you put money out per day, and you're losing per day. Mashen ken a merchatz, although you might have put out money in general to buy the merchatz, to purchase the bathhouse or the tanur, but you're not putting out money every single day for that. It's one layout, and then over the period of the week and everything, you can try to make more and to make up for it. But if you don't work on it's not considered a hefsed, it's considered a meniyas a revach. It's withholding a revach, a gain, rather than a loss. And that's the hesber, he says in the Magen Avraham, that we calculate every day on its own right, because he seems to understand that there's it's calculated by the day, the amount of money you put out to acquire the taxes. It's considered that it's a daily output, and therefore that day you don't have a choice to do one day or not the other. You have to do it by the day for the entire period of the tax season. So the day that you don't work, there's no other, you can't make up that day, and it's going to be it's an absolute loss rather than a meniyas harevach, and that's what will bring a person to the bahala of the loss that they might come to be Mechal Shabbos if you don't allow it through a goy. So it comes out according to the Magen Avraham, there's no difference between a hefsed gadol or hefsed katan. We don't look at the largeness or smallness of the loss. We look at if it's a loss or it's a prevention of revach, of gain. So the Yad Ephraim, also on the Magen Avraham here, on the page in the Shulchan Aruch, learns like the Levushe Srad, that's the pshat in the Magen Avraham, that it's the chiluk is meniyas harevach or hefsed, and he says according to that, even if you have a type of a tanur or a merchatz that not having it open on Shabbos is a huge, there's a tremendous amount of money that you could have gained that you don't. So it's still, since it's Minias Revach and not Hefsed, that's still not a heter. Because again, we're not looking at this at the size, the enormity or the size of the loss. We're looking at whether it's a Hefsed or it's a Minias Revach. I guess it's a deep question over here between them, whether what would cause a person to have Yibahol Mamono. So the Taz is learning more about Batish in a way, saying that if there's a great loss, even though it's not a hefsed, it's still a great loss that you could have gained, then a person is still bohol on that, and you'll come to Michal Shabbos. So the Magen Avraham, no. You're only bohol on Mamono of something that's going to be actually lost. Like the case, the source of the case is the Arnaki, is the wallet that you are going to lose if you can't carry it and give it to the goy. So since you might lose your money that's in your wallet, that is a loss that a person might come to be bohol and be Michal Shabbos himself if you don't allow him to give it to a goy. But but we're not going to. If a Jew has the chance, holds a Magen Avraham, to make a lot of profit on something, have a great deal and have a lot of profit, and you don't allow him to do that, so that we're not worried that you're going to be bohol mamono with Michal Shabbos to do it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, why is, according to this Magen Avraham, what is this loss per day? It's that every day the Jew doesn't pay, it's a knas? Is that what the loss is?
He pays by the day. He has to. It starts in the fact that you already put out money. So now if you don't collect enough taxes per day to cover the money you put out for that day, then it's a loss of that output. But so I guess it's put out to begin with for all the days, but it's calculated by the days. It sounds like so there's a daily loss, and I don't know the Metzia so well, but it sounds like you can't make up for it in other days. You're not going to be able to make up for it. Each day is somehow a cheshbon b'fnei. So if you lose this day, you lost out.
So Lamaisa would rent be the same as this because it's calculated by the day versus if you own something and you put out the money to begin with?
Well, you have to know the Messias again if you can make it up in the other days, or in somewhat make it up. If you can make up the loss, if you work harder on the other days, then it won't be bohol on that.
It's a problem with the Metzias here. It's like confusing what's going on here with the tax collection. Why he can't just work harder Monday to Friday, but I guess he can't. I guess that's the Metzias.
Right. Yeah, that's what comes out now. So the Magen Avraham goes on to say that also by asiyas matbea, if you have a goy shutaf with a goy to coin the coins, you have a mint to mint the coins. So he says that's also, since you have reshus from the melech to do that. So he says that that they're matir because of hefsed is only in a place where you're not going to be marviach. Yeah, this is one more t'nai than Magen Avraham. The shitaso that we saw in the last siman is that the heter over here is only going to be if you're not marviach from what was done on Shabbos, and all the revach is to the akum. So that is considered it's not. That's why it's not considered schar Shabbos since it's being done through kablanas. Now the Magen Avraham did not write that about the meches, and we have to understand really what's going on over here with the meches. Like it's if the Magen Avraham makes it that you can't be marviach from it, so then how is there heter for the meches? So really, this lies, and we go back to the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham, he brings down that the Beis Yosef and the Bach had difficult on this din besides schar Shabbos. That's another one of the elements over here. The Nakudas is from we see later on in Shulchan Aruch that there's an isser of schar Shabbos. That's an isser b'fnei atzmo. You cannot gain from Melech on Shabbos and get schar Shabbos. That's besides Marasayan. That sounds like more of an isser meikar din. So this is an additional chiddush, says Magen Avraham, in them, that we see that the makam of this hesed, Shemi, you'll come to be Machal Shabbos yourself. Even for that Isser of Schar Shabbos, they weren't Choshesh. And that's a Chiddush Gadol. And the reason it would be considered Schar Shabbos is because you're Kaveh Malachta b'Shabbos. You're giving the Goy mainly to do the work over here on Shabbos. But the Magen Avraham is cholik on them. He says it's not even considered. According to them, we have a chiddush over here that we're mater schar Shabbos. Magen Avraham holds it's not considered schar Shabbos at all, because since you are makna the meches to the Goy, since you are makna to him, you're makna to him the schus to be go with the meches. So it's like you're makna the meches itself, the money to the Goy. So it's like says the Magen Avraham, it's kimoshe hikna lo schara. It's if you're makna him products to sell. That as long as you give it, you had a real kinyan to give it to the Goy, he's selling it for himself. He's not selling it for you anymore. So that's not considered revach for Shabbos. And also the Medayik from Lashon Ramah that didn't mention the heter over here, except for the Mitzad Maris Ayin, didn't mention the fact that it's also Schar Shabbos. So he wants to say that Pashtus, because it's not considered Schar Shabbos over here, because the Goy is working for himself, and it's not your Schar Shabbos.
So I'm confused. Is the Jew making any profit here?
Well, so that's the confusing point over here. So I'll tell you what in a minute. Like then how are you making up your loss, right? Unless you're making it up by maybe the Goy is paying you for the amount that you paid for the. If he paid you to buy it, to purchase it, that one answer would be the pashas that he purchased it for you the amount that you would have given out. So,
and you're doing this. You're asking him on Shabbos.
No, you're setting this up before Shabbos. So
then, what's the problem at all? Like then there would be, he's paying you for the right to sell Saturdays, collect Saturdays taxes, collect all the profit. You did nothing wrong here.
And that's good for what he's tying on the Beis Yosef and the Bach. He's saying that why are you saying it's Schar Shabbos? He's saying why is this different than Schora? That's good for his kasha. Why is this any different than selling Schora and the guy's doing it for himself? So he says it's dumya to someone who knows that a goy is going to bring you schora on Shabbos, is going to bring it to you on Shabbos, and you take another goy and hire him or he purchases it from you for when it's going to arrive. So you're mocher lo harmana de melech. You're in this case also you're harmana de melech is like the reshus, the power of the melech, the reshus of the melech to be go with these taxes. So you're selling that harmana de melech. It's a chiddush to be able to sell that, which might be the problem of the Beis Yosef and the Bach. It's a chiddush to consider that the schora, because the etzem. We'll take a few steps over here. The Yad Ephraim explains the Magen Avraham the following. He says that there's no mitzad Yisrael, there's no schar Shabbos. The mitzido from his side, what he receives on Shabbos, whatever he's going to gain from it is b'havlah. He doesn't answer like I just answered you. He says a different answer. He wants to say that the problem of schar Shabbos doesn't start over here. Schar Shabbos is only a problem when something is done yuchad for Shabbos. You hire somebody to work for you just on Shabbos, or you gain from something that was done just on Shabbos. But if I'm gaining in general, let's say over the whole week, and Shabbos is included, then that's already b'havlah. When it's b'havlah, it's like literally havlah means swallow it up. So the Shabbos is swallowed up into the rest of the week. That's not doesn't have an isser of schar Shabbos. Schar Shabbos is only when it's yuchad for Shabbos. So the Yad Ephraim understands the Magen Avraham to say that the reason it's not a problem with Schar Shabbos, the Jew is not gaining from this overall tax collecting just from Shabbos. He's collecting the entire week and is gaining from the entire week. So Shabbos is one of the days. The fact that he's working out a way that makes it mutter, because there's a kabbalah going on, and now even if he's gaining it from it on Shabbos, even though he gains from it, still that's not a problem because it's b'havlah to the rest of the week from all his schar that he's getting from the taxes. That's the mahalach of the Yad Ephraim. Mamela, all that remains then would be Marasayan, because since you set it up in a way of kablonis and all this stuff in Marasayan, the Marasayan is what we're matzir because of the hefsid. Right. So, and for that reason, he's the Yad Ephraim is docha, those poskim that want to say according to the Magen Avraham that the heter of the goy over here will only be if you hire the goy to collect taxes also partly for the week. If he gets also some of the weekday, in order to take away the problem of Schar Shabbos, because the Yad Ephraim says a chiddush, the kula, that it's not, since the Jew is also gaining during the week, so the Shabbos b'chalal is b'havlah with him. Therefore, the fact that the goy is helping him for the Shabbos doesn't turn it into Schar Shabbos. That's his shot. But on this whole thing, which is really, I think, goes to the crux of maybe why the Beis Yosef and the Bach said what they said. They said it's Terutzim. Maxa Sheko brings a kasha in the name of the Tosas Shabbos, and also the Pri Megadim has the same kasha. They both ask a kasha from Hilchos Pesach, Siman Taf Nun, that you cannot sell to a goy. Let's say you have let's say, for example, you have a beer, a schnapps producing business that produces schnapps, which is chametz. So when the wheat first put in, or the hops or whatever you put in, it's not chametz yet until later, until it becomes chametz. So you want to make a sale before Pesach starts to the goy, that when it becomes chametz, it becomes his. So there we say that does not work. You can't do that. Why? Because the chametz at the time you sell it is a davar shelo ba'al olam, and we have rayos from Shas that you can't sell a davar shelo ba'al olam. So, and when will it be ba'al olam? When it becomes chametz. When it becomes chametz, then only then with the mechir bichal, because then the Jew, it'll become his, and then he's able to sell it. So like it'll become his retroactively during Pesach, and he'll be over the Isra Bal Rabal Matzeh of Chametz at the time that the king has to be chal to the goy. So they ask that the same thing should apply over here. How could I sell to the goy? I'm selling the Harmana de Malka, but these taxes I'm selling. That right now, what I'm selling to him is a davar shelo ba'al olam. The taxes are not yet collected. So how could I sell that to him? So Machsa Shekel answers. You have the question?
Yeah, the Harmana Lamelech. How would Rebbe translate that? Goodwill? What
It sounds like the schus, the koach and the melech. I think not Lashon harmony. Lashon Hamad and Melech is like the power of the king that he has, like the power vested in me through the king.
You're selling the contractual rights from the government or from the king.
But since I own that, so what I'm selling the goy, what I'm saying that there'll be his taxes, like, and when he collects a certain amount, he's really collecting the taxes for himself, give it to me, etc. So what I sold him is l'chora the kinyan should be chal when he collects it. And at that point, because until then it's a davar shelo ba'al olam. So in the same way we say by chametz and Pesach, that I would have to be over in order for the goy to acquire it. So over here, I would have to be over by becoming my taxes when he collects it for me, and then go be transferred over to him. So why is there a heter over here? That's what the Achronim ask over here. The Pri Megadim, Machsa Shekel. So Machsa Shekel answers that by chametz the kinyan is not chal. There's no acquisition until it becomes the chametz of a Jew, and that when a minute it becomes his, he's over. Then he can't even sell it anymore. Mashenkin over here be'etzem, you made the guy a kablan. He's not really a shliach. You made it into a kablan, So the only Isser over here is not an Isser be'etzem. There's no real Isser over here. It's an Isser only of Nira Kaschar Shabbos. Like it looks like a socher. So since this kinyan works, that I'm allowed be dinehim, and I'm under their laws, the kinyan that I'm knocked into him, this davar shalom ba'olam, that's considered a kinyan. It's considered legally binding kinyan and their laws, even though generally we don't go after their dinim, we have to go after our own dinim. But here, since the whole problem is that it's mixi, kaschar Shabbos, so the fact that you made a kinyan to the goy in a way that works for goyim, that they're makabel and it works, so then it takes away the fact that it's mixi kaschar Shabbos. That's the teretz of the Maksa Shakel. It's not really an Isser, it's just mixi Isser, so it's enough that it takes away that mixi, they doing a kinyan that works according to them. The Pri Megadim answers a little differently. He answers that it's enough over here to, since the whole Isser, it sounds like it's an Isser Rabbanan, similar to what he said, the Maksa Shakel, but he just says that even a kinyan koldahu will be misalikim from the Isser. That's his. That's what he answers. Now, it's not exactly, but it's something similar to the Maksa Shekel. That they're saying that the nature of the Isser over here is one that we can deal with. It's more kal to deal with. Now, this actually takes us into another shaila, which we're not going to really go into right now. There's a famous Rabbi Kiveger in Shuvas and Kufnan Test. If a person can do a Maisa, if Jew is allowed to do a Maisa Kinyan on Erev Shabbos, that it should be Chal on Shabbos. So he has one side to say that if you did the whole Maisa Kinyan before, if the Chalos is on Shabbos, the Jew is Nach. The Jew didn't do anything on Shabbos, so it's okay. But he comes to Maskana, he holds not that way. He holds that you need the Jew's das. The das machna is there, so therefore it's as if the Jew is involved in it on Shabbos and it doesn't work. So according to that, you would have a serious problem over here that you're being machna to him before Shabbos, but the chalos will only be when the money is collected. So according to Rabbi Kiveger, we have an issue over here. But the fact is, Rov Achronim Racholik on Rabbi Kiveger, the Marshag, and it has a tshuva, is a Talmud of the Maram Shif. So he's dealing with the shallow over there of having a vending machine. A Jew owns a vending machine that's going to be in a public place, so it's not clear. It's not before said it's owned by a Jew. So you walk into into the bus station, whatever, any place, and there's a vending machine there that has. There was a new thing in those days. He says that it's a box. You have chocolates and etc. And you put money in, and the chocolate comes out. He has to describe a vending machine and the new thing. So it's owned by a Jew. So the goy is putting money in on Shabbos, and the Jew. So you have the das machna, the Jew betzem mikara, that whoever puts the money in, then your candy bar goes to the goy. So he's matir that. He says that you're not doing anything, and there's no problem with such a thing. And the das machna of the Jew, that's the implied das machna, is not considered a shtatfus of the Jew in the whole process, and therefore he holds no problem. That's the minig olam, like the Marshag, not like Rabbi Kiveger, like on the side of Rabbi Kiveger that it's usher, and that has huge ramifications for online businesses that continue to go on Shabbos, because the goyim that might buy from it, so the Jew is not involved in it. It just goes on autopilot and keeps going. So there's no involvement of a Jew. So we go like the Marshag in that case. So according to that, then over here also, if I set up the goy in business over here to collect the money on Shabbos, then the Chor, according to the Marshag and the other Achronim, it should be okay, just like the vending machine. Just one last nakuda I think we'll talk about here, and the Bir Halacha I think I'm going to stay out of this right now. Don't get too complicated, too long. All right, so that's we're out of time now. I thought we'd do also Shin Zion today, but so that this one sif is so chashuv and so has so many ramifications. So we have to really get this down good. So, Mr. Shem, we're off next week on break, and we'll be in touch to see when we'll be starting up next, Mr. Shem.
Thank you very much. Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos, thank you.
Take care, Kultiv.